Greetings, this is Griff Ruby, the Nostalgic Catholic, with yet another Asimov short story. Now, this one is actually a short story. In fact, it's listed on here just simply under the short stories category down here as Button Button, Isaac Asimov, age 74. Now, there's a little blurb here. This is the pulp size rather than the digest size. So most things have gone digest size, but not Startling Stories. A thrilling wonder publication. Oh, it's still around so far. Button Button Isaac Asimov. Even the old professor wasn't really able to foresee the past. Ooh, I like that. So, that said, let's see what's happening. Page 74. And now, I kind of like the way this describes the person. Then somebody drew the face. There's a couple of blurbs. There's a big heading on top that says, even the old professor could not foresee the past, which is pretty much what's in the table of contents. And then below, it says, I had seen many reproductions, but this was the real thing. See, it's got this character named Uncle Otto. And Uncle Otto, it says, my Uncle Otto's face looked like a bloodhound that had just been kicked in the rump by his best friend. What would that look like? Well, let's look at one artist's imagination for that kind of description, and maybe that works. And here he is. See that great big face in there? See, there's the top, there's the other thing. There he is. And then the younger guy there, I guess he's the nephew of the uncle. And in there's this whole mysterious machine, sci-fi type stuff, you know. And in the midst of that machine is, hey, look at this. I get this up close. In Congress, July 4, 1776. Yeah. Declaration of Independence. Ooh, a lot of great signatures. And in a sense, that's what it is. Otto's been doing some inventing and so forth. He's got this idea of trying to create mind-controlled flutes. Okay, now, kind of made me think of that Thermidor. There's that instrument, you know, that you just kind of hold your hand, you wave it around over this thing, or maybe a little metal wand, and it makes this sort of woo, woo, you know, really great for sci-fi type noises, but carefully controlled. I mean, it's like playing a violin or a trombone. There's no frets, there's no stops. You know, you get a total continuous sound, you know, frequency continuously controllable, which means if you want to get anything with good intonation, you've got to memorize the exact spots to get the exact pitches that won't be off key. And apparently controlling these flutes is kind of the same thing. It's done even more directly just with your mind. And anyway, so he's got this ambition, but he needs money to do that, and he wants to come up with money. Meanwhile, he's got another invention that can yank something out of the past and make an exact duplicate, as long as it doesn't weigh too much and is at least 150 years old. And you can just find some way to profit from that. Well, he does. The machine destroys itself and pulling one thing from the past, but they manage to pull an exact copy of the Declaration of Independence. Which, yeah, okay, it's more than 150 years old, even in 1952 when this was written. And the idea is it's got some very rare signatures. Now, name, Button, you know, yeah, I should say, hey, Button, who's got the button? That's not the greatest title of the story. It shouldn't promise much. At least the story was more than promised by the title. I'll give it that much. That's not saying very much. So, anyway, he wants to sell a certain signature on there by an individual, and let's see if I can find this in here. Unfortunately, it's not too large, so Shouldn't be that hard. He's trying to find a signature. Apparently, there we go. Gwyneth Button was his name. And apparently, since he died the very next year, so he really didn't get to see very much of what became this new country he helped bring into existence. So he's his signatures are, let's just say, extremely rare commodities. And we're going to get one that is authentic because it is literally the one off of the Declaration of Independence, except that this is a molecule for molecule copy. As if in beaming somebody from one place to another, you didn't have to destroy the original. So the original is left there and the copy is somewhere, but molecule for molecule, electrical current for electrical current, anything else you can imagine for anything else you can imagine, they are really identical. So this is, except it's identical to the thing as it was 150 years previous. It's absolutely authentic. It's totally, obviously handwritten. It's got those little characteristics of the ink that, you pick up the pen and a little spot of ink accumulates and kind of widens out onto the paper or deepens into it or whatever it does. This was handwritten. This is, a truly and full exact copy. But here's the thing. Button Gwinnett. That was his name. His first name was Button. So it says one of these signers from the state of Georgia died in 1777, the year after he signed the Declaration. He didn't leave much behind him, and so authentic examples of his signature are about the most valuable in the world. His name was Button Gwinnett. So, and that's how they'll cash in, because a signature of his might be worth $100,000, which in 1952 was a lot more than $100,000 today. So they're going to be pretty well off. Otto can go ahead and build all the factors for all of his mind control flutes he could possibly want. So there was one thing in there. Oh, you haven't heard his flutes. And I was kind of say, well, I have. It's not bad in a kind of twisted sort of way. The national anthem is played on his metal flutes. It's not bad in a kind of twisted sort of way. Oh boy, but okay, it can't miss. Well, it does miss. When you think about it, obviously any get-rich-quick scheme is by its very nature doomed to failure for one reason or another. In the story, well, one reason they came up with is since it is an exact copy of what it had been 150 years previous, the parchment is fresh, whereas the one at the National Archives is, well, clearly well over 150 years old, unlike the other that is what? Let me see. 50 years, okay, about 50 years old, give or take a few years. But it occurs to me this other thing. The signature intersects parts of another signature on that document. The copy, therefore, would do the same. It would also be, in every way, not only similar, and obviously, therefore, authentic in that sense, but inauthentic in the sense that it is too exact. And I don't know. You can't think of everything until you did. So that was another reason it wouldn't have worked. You'd see a piece of that signature and you'd say, somebody has simply copied this part of the Declaration of Independence right down to everything, even the part of the other signature intersecting this one. Say nothing of even the same person when they make the same autograph, and even assuming they don't spell it different. Well, I said Bill here, I said Billy there, and I said William here, and and Billy A. Temlich here, and Billy Alderhan Temlich there, and Billy William Temlich here, But let's cut those things out. Assuming you have the exact same configuration of letters, even the same person writing their name is not going to be exactly the same, which makes trying to authenticate signature something, I think, a little less than an exact science. But if it was absolutely exact, you know you've got a copy because let the person write. You just try it yourself. Just write your name down on a nice little cursive thing. You still have cursive anymore. Say 10 times in a row. Bip 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 bip. You write it there, and are you any two of them going to be absolutely the same? Well, no. On this one, you made this one a little higher than that one, and that one was a little wider than on that one, and they're all a little bit different. But if somebody tried to forge it, and that would have made this thing certainly an interesting artifact, no matter how you look at it, because it would have been obviously it's not printed, it's not copied, Xerox, and even the usual kinds of technologies, photographed. Obviously this is a piece of physical parchment upon which somebody with the right kind of pen physically wrote this thing, and they managed to duplicate this thing flawlessly, absolutely, too flawlessly. Okay, but they did that, and you couldn't even get it that good if you tried to trace over it or something, because again, you try to copy it exactly, and you get all these tiny little wiggles and so forth. You see, all of that's absent, so that would have been an interesting anomaly, but it wouldn't have been worth $100,000. So poor Uncle Otto is going to have to find another way to finance his ambition with these mind control flutes of his. Well, that's the story. There's not much to it. We'll start seeing more of these as we go further into the 50s. Not all of Asimov's stories are real stories per se. Some of them are just kind of short things that, come to populate this collection here, By Jupiter. So, By Jupiter has a lot of these little short stories. Some of them are still kind of fun and cute, but not quite so much. Anyway, that's what we have. Thanks for listening.